Welcome to X Confessions Unlocked, where lies, betrayal, and truth collide. Kindly subscribe so you don't miss any of this. We share new stories daily. Stick around and unlock the drama. Now, let's get into today's story. Thanks for paying my nursing school tuition. My new man says thank you too. That was the exact message glowing on my phone at 11:47 p.m., the night she crossed the stage in her white cap and velvet trim gown. I reread it 3 times, feeling the words land like ice cubes against bare skin. Cold, tiny stings that melted almost as soon as they hurt, leaving nothing but a wet patch of disbelief. My name is Lucas, though my friends call me Lucky because good things seem to line up for me when I least expect it. It never felt like luck, though, more like I was always nudging little dominoes in a neat rows, waiting for the right moment to knock one and let gravity handle the rhythm. That night, alone in my apartment with the window cracked open to a sticky early summer breeze, I realized how easily the dominoes can rearrange themselves when someone kicks the table. I met Jenna on the second floor of a quiet bookstore downtown, back when people still believed indie bookstores could survive on charm alone. She was bent over a display of medical reference flashcards, highlighting entire sentences because, in her words, the professor loves it when we quote the book verbatim. Her brow was scrunched, her messy ponytail threatened to unravel, and her coffee, triple-shot caramel macchiato, sat forgotten, foam sagging. I cracked a joke about how highlighting everything is the same as highlighting nothing. She rolled her eyes but smiled, and that was it. One shared laugh, 2 lattes, 3 years of us. Jenna's dream was always nursing. My dream was to build small, useful apps. Nothing flashy, just scripts that solve annoying everyday problems. The difference is my dream pays almost immediately if you're half decent at it. Hers cost 40+ grand a year and required brutal night shifts, unpaid clinicals, and a mountain of textbooks thick enough to stop a bullet. Jenna's parents meant well, but were in the kind of debt that forces you to choose between paying the mortgage and fixing the car. Mine had passed when I was 21, leaving me a modest inheritance. A house sold, insurance paid out, nothing obscene, but enough to seed a Roth IRA and still have a rainy day fund. I'd never called it an inheritance aloud. It sounded like bragging. Jenna knew I had some savings. I never told her how much. The payment plan began innocently. I fronted her first semester textbooks because the campus bookstore wanted $400 for what looked like recycled phone books. Then came lab fees, scrubs, and CLEX prep courses. Each time, Jenna promised to pay me back, once I'm making real nurse money. She meant it. I believed her. Love, like caffeine, convinces you're not tired. Year 2, tuition ballooned, and she cornered me in our kitchen after a brutal shift of mine, flipping pancakes at midnight because it was the only dinner either of us could stomach. I could take out a private loan, she said, chewing the inside of her cheek. But the interest rate is murder. She wouldn't ask directly. It was more of a hopeful pause, a gentle lilt in her voice. I told her I'd cover it. That interest would only punish future Jenna for present Jenna's ambition. She cried, kissed me, promised me front row seats at graduation and first claim on all future foot rubs. We toasted with watery orange juice and went to bed smelling like syrup and relief. I won't pretend I kept a running tally in my head. That would have cheapened it. But Google Sheets did. Cell E34, hidden behind a lock tab, tracked each tuition payment, each lab fee, each last-minute exam voucher. I labeled it simply investment. Jenna once joked I stared at spreadsheets the way moms stare at baby monitors. I shrugged. It's easier to sleep when you know exactly what's happening in the dark. Fast forward to cap and gown season. The week before graduation, Jenna's texts grew scattered. Battery dying, talk later. Clinical ran long, crashing now. We'd drifted before, finals, night shifts, cold season burnout, but this felt different, like she was driving through fog and deliberately turning off her headlights. I chalked it up to nerves. On graduation morning, I ironed a pale blue button-down and snuck a silver foil card into my inside pocket, the kind that pops confetti when opened. At the top I'd written, "Proud of you." Beneath, a check for the final semester's tuition in full. I never got to hand it over. Jenna's ceremony livestream froze on my phone as her last name hit the O portion of the alphabet. By the time my screen unglitched, she'd already stepped off stage, diploma in one hand, bouquet in the other, grabbing selfies with a group I didn't recognize. No seat was saved for me. No look searched the crowd for my face. I tried her cell twice, straight to voicemail. Tried her best friend Chelsea, who texted me back a shrug emoji. Tried campus security when the live stream ended, half panicked she'd fainted or lost her phone. They politely suggested I contact her family. I considered it, then pictured her parents' proud, exhausted faces and felt a surge of shame. Who was I to intrude on their moment? So I went home, poured myself a glass of store-brand whiskey, and opened YouTube. The ceremony replay loaded in 1080p, smooth as butter this time. I watched Jenna stride across the stage, toss her curls, flash a smile I knew too well. Just before she exited frame, she turned to someone at the wings, a tall guy in a charcoal suit, and blew a kiss. His hand hovered at her waist before the camera cut away. 11:47 that night, the text arrived. She'd spelled thank you as one word. Thank you. When you've read someone's essays at 2 a.m., you learn their typos there. Rhythm, that sloppy overlap of thank and you was hers, not his. She wanted me to know it was Jenna texting, not the mysterious new man. I sat with the phone glowing cold, white in my palm. The apartment was still save for the hum of the fridge and the faint rumble of summer traffic 3 floors below. A moth bumped against the lampshade, frantic. Funny the things you notice when the rest of life stops. I didn't rage type back or call her names. Instead, I thumbed. You're welcome. Congrats again. 10 seconds passed. Then my final addition. Take care of yourself. I hit send, toggled do not disturb, and placed the phone face down. In the quiet, a realization surfaced. I was calm. Not numb, not in denial, just eerily centered, as though the shock burned off the fog and left only clarity. I walked to my desk, opened the investment spreadsheet, and scrolled to the hidden tab. The total stared back, $86,412.54. I traced the numbers with the cursor, breathing slowly, like I was reading a eulogy. That's when I remembered the loan company. During year 2, Jenna had shopped for private loans. She'd filled out an application, but never finalized it after I stepped in. The company kept her file open under my name as co-signer, just in case. I still had the portal login buried in my password manager. I clicked it open out of curiosity, half expecting the account to be dormant. It wasn't. Months ago, she'd quietly borrowed $12,000 to cover incidental costs, a clinical rotation in another state, she'd said back then. The loans sat in deferment, interest ticking like a slow leak. My first flush of anger arrived, warm and bright. It fizzed behind my ears, but didn't reach my hands. Instead, I asked myself a simple question. What does fairness look like now? I've been taught, by parents who never missed a dented consale, that fairness isn't revenge, it's balance restored. Jenna's text tipped the scale. The loan account was the counterweight. I closed the portal without touching anything. I slept, dreamless, until morning light cut across the ceiling. Then I did what any software guy does when life tangles. I made coffee and outlined a flowchart. Top box, goal, clean break, zero resentment. Left branch, forgive and walk. Right branch, enforce accountability. I followed the right branch, not out of spite, but out of a quiet insistence that actions should echo. First step, call the lender, remove myself as co-signer, and trigger immediate payment due. Second step, forward Jenna an itemized spreadsheet of every tuition installment I'd covered, highlighted in the same neon yellow she loved. Third step, return her spare apartment key in a padded envelope. No note. Before any of that, though, I needed to confirm I wasn't acting from a place of hot anger. So I ran 6 miles along the river path, letting the humid air claw at my lungs. With each footfall, I replayed 3 years. The late-night pancake dinners, her laughter echoing off our cracked tile kitchen walls. The first time she practiced for insertion on my forearm and panicked at the sight of my blood. The memories didn't twist the knife. They just floated past like driftwood, proof I'd once been in a different current. By the time I reached the old train bridge and turned back, the decision was already lived in, comfortable as my sweat-soaked t-shirt. Back home, I showered, dressed, and dialed the lender. A polite representative named Dave placed me on hold long enough for me to finish an apple. When he returned, he confirmed that removing a cosigner means the primary borrower must either find a new cosigner or begin repayment. Deferment would end next billing cycle. I agreed, voice steady, thanked him, and hung up. It felt like backing away from a slot machine after cashing out. No jackpot, but no loss uncounted. Next, the spreadsheet. I uncloaked the hidden tab, formatted it with Jenna's favorite pastel pink header, and added a friendly note at the bottom, for your records. No threats, no demands, just a ledger. I hesitated before sending. Somewhere between column H and I, Doubt wiggled in. Was I the villain handing her a punishment she might never recover from? Could I stomach seeing her struggle? An answer surfaced that surprised me. I could, if the struggle taught both of us something. My therapist once said boundaries aren't walls, they're doors with clear locks. This was me locking my door. I composed an email, attached the sheet, subject line, financial summary, nursing program support. Simple, clinical. Then, in the body, a single sentence, figured you'd need these numbers for your own budgeting going forward. I hit send at 1:12 p.m., exhaled, and folded my laptop shut, like sealing an envelope. 3 hours later, a barrage of notifications erupted. A missed call from Jenna. 2 voicemails. 6 texts. I listened to none. Read only the first 2 lines of the longest text. What the hell is this? You're ruining my credit. I set the phone down. Sunset washed the apartment rose gold. I pulled a lawn chair to the fire escape, cracked a ginger beer, and watched kids in the alley spray each other with a garden hose. Their squeals carried up, pure and careless. I thought about how graduation should feel that way. Celebratory, wild, innocent. Yet Jenna's final act turned it into a ledger of debts owed, gratitude forgotten. There was something poetic about converting that poison back into numbers. Numbers don't lie. They sit silently until someone decides to read them. My friends blew up our group chat when they heard the story. Half called me savage, half called me saintly. I ignored the labels. By midnight, I felt a strange buoyancy, like I'd been carrying a backpack for so long I forgot it was there, until I set it down and my spine straightened. I slept again, dreamless. Morning light arrived cooler, gentler, as if the sky itself approved the ledger's closing. Before work, I opened my journal, a habit Jenna had nudged me toward during her psych rotation, and scribbled one line, "The cost of clarity is always worth it." That afternoon, I checked the loan portal one last time. The balance remained, but my name no longer occupied the cosigner field. Under repayment status, a due date glared, 30 days out. I closed the tab, deleted the bookmark, and cleared my browser cache. A full digital goodbye. Jenna never returned the spare key to my place. Maybe she kept it as a souvenir. Maybe she threw it away. Either way, the locks would change. That was tomorrow's task. Today's task was simpler, living the next 12 hours unburdened. I left the apartment and walked downtown, passing the bookstore where we'd met. The window display now advertised scented candles and memoirs about mindfulness. I stepped inside on impulse, inhaled that comforting paper and ink smell, and bought a fresh notebook, plain cover, thick pages that beg for new stories. The clerk smiled and slipped a free bookmark into the bag, a small card that read, "Every ending opens a readier page." I chuckled at the pun, cheesy but apt. Back on the sidewalk, traffic hummed like distant surf. I felt neither rage nor triumph, only an expanding, quiet space where resentment used to live. It's strange how revenge stories in movies end with explosions or arrests or dramatic monologues. Mine ended with a spreadsheet and a polite phone call. And maybe that's the point. Karmic echoes don't need to shout. They ring clear enough in silence. Jenna's repayment clock had started. My own clock, toward whatever came next, ticked too, but lighter. I didn't know if she and her new man would stay together through the financial storm or blame each other until they fractured. That part was never mine to script. All I knew was that the ledger balanced, the dominoes settled, and for the first time in months, I walked home feeling every step beneath me, solid, unhurried, free. I wish I could say I stormed off and never looked back. But the truth is, I didn't call her out right then. I just stared at the phone, rereading that message like it would change if I blinked hard enough. Then I texted back simply, "You're welcome." That was it. No curse words, no dramatics. I hit send, put my phone down, and sat there in the quiet for a long time. The ceiling fan spun above me, stirring the stale afternoon air. I remember the faint hum of traffic outside, a lawnmower in the distance, and the soft creak of the chair under me as I leaned back, feeling every inch of the betrayal settle on my chest like a bag of bricks. It's a weird thing, feeling like an idiot and a villain at the same time. I wasn't angry at her yet. I was angry at myself for not seeing it, for brushing off the red flags because I thought love meant making sacrifices, for ignoring the gut feeling that had started months before she even applied for nursing school. Her name's Kayla, and mine's Jason. I'm 32 now. She's 27. We met when she was waitressing at this brunch spot downtown, just after I got promoted at the construction firm. She was funny, sharp-witted, quick to quote obscure medical facts. She talked about wanting more out of life, and I admired that. I grew up in a household where ambition wasn't optional. My dad was a foreman, my mom a nurse. They didn't believe in half-assing anything. So when Kayla told me she wanted to be a nurse but didn't have the funds, I didn't even hesitate. We'd been dating for about a year and a half at that point. I'd seen her at her best and worst, taking care of her little sister after their mom passed, working double shifts, staying up late to study anatomy with YouTube videos. I believed in her. I wanted to be the guy who helped her get where she wanted to go. We made a deal. I'd cover tuition and books. She'd keep working part-time and finish the 3-year program without crushing debt. She called me her quiet hero, said she'd pay me back with loyalty, love, and a good future together. The first year was solid. She worked hard, brought home flashcards, told me about her clinicals. We had lazy Sundays and date nights. But somewhere in year 2, things shifted. She became distant, more guarded with her phone. She started using phrases like self-growth and outgrowing codependence. She picked fights about small things, how I folded the laundry, how I didn't challenge her intellectually. At first, I thought it was the stress, but it wasn't. I didn't realize until later, until well after that text, that she'd already met him, some guy from one of her hospital rotations. She never gave me a name, never even had the decency to tell me in person. Just that smug little text, like I was a scholarship fund that had run its course. After I sent the "you're welcome," I didn't say another word to her for a while. I blocked her on social media, deleted her contact. But I didn't forget. That kind of thing sticks to you. About a week after that message, I got a call from a mutual friend, Carla, who worked part-time at the same hospital Kayla had been rotating through. We hadn't talked in a while, but she'd heard about the breakup. She sounded unsure, like she didn't want to get involved, but also could not tell me. "Jason," she said, "I think you should know she's been seeing that guy for months. They were real flirty during rotations." I thought maybe it was nothing, but yeah. Sorry, man. That confirmation hurt, but it also shifted something inside me. It took the grief and turned it into clarity. That's when I went back and started digging through the paperwork. See, I didn't just throw money at her schooling blindly. I'm not dumb. I had Kayla sign a private loan agreement, just between us, nothing formal through a bank but still enforceable. I had drawn it up after she got accepted, and she agreed to repay me within 5 years of graduation or if we separated. She laughed about it at the time, called it too official, but signed anyway. I kept a scanned copy and even had her best friend, now her ex-best friend, witness it. After the breakup, I pulled that file out of the cloud folder and stared at it like it was a map back to my dignity. I didn't act right away. I let it simmer. That summer, I started jogging more, eating better, threw myself into work. My boss had been hinting at a project lead role for months, and I finally took him up on it. I traveled a bit too. Spent a few weekends out of town, just clearing my head and remembering who I was before I made someone else my mission. From the back of my mind, the loan sat like a box I hadn't opened yet. Then, about 3 months after graduation, I got another text from Kayla, this time from a different number. "Hey, weird question. Did you ever get rid of that loan doc thing? Just wondering. Hope you're well. No, sorry. No explanation. Just fishing." I didn't respond, but I did call my cousin Sam. He's a lawyer, a good one, the kind that doesn't sugarcoat. I sent him the agreement. He read it over, called me back that night. "This is enforceable," he said. "If you're serious, we can move forward." And I was. Within 2 weeks, we filed for repayment on the outstanding amount. Full tuition, books, and fees. Total? About $46,000. I didn't hear from her directly, but 2 days after she was served, her new guy messaged me on Instagram. It was short, arrogant, and stupid. "Really, bro? You bitter? She's moved on. You should too." I didn't reply. Instead, I just screenshotted the message, saved it to a folder I labeled Kayla Closure, and muted him. That was the last straw for me. That folder became my therapy. I filled it with everything, receipts, screenshots, even a photo of her graduation day that her mom had posted. In it, Kayla's smiling wide, cap tilted sideways, holding her degree like it was a trophy she earned alone. New guy's arm around her waist. They looked like a team, but now they were a team in debt. Because Kayla didn't have $46,000 lying around. And surprise, neither did her new man. When they tried to contest it, Sam handled it. The agreement held up. They couldn't dodge it. So guess what? They're now both working overtime. She's picking up back-to-back shifts, and he's juggling 2 part-time jobs to help cover what she owes. Word got around that she had to sell her car and move back into a shared apartment. The same girl who once called me her stability, now scrambling to make minimum payments to her ex. Do I feel smug? Not really. What I feel is peace. Because I didn't scream. I didn't post rants online or try to ruin her reputation. I let the truth handle itself. And it did. I'll tell you how that final conversation went next, when she tried to make things right. Spoiler, it wasn't the apology you'd expect. I didn't hear from Kayla again for months after the loan enforcement started. My life had moved on mostly. I wasn't obsessing over her anymore. Not exactly, but the whole experience had left a kind of quiet bruise under the surface. You know the kind. Not visible, not tender to the touch, but deep. It changes how you sit with people, how much you give, how much you trust. The debt collection was in motion. Sam took care of most of it. Every so often, I'd get an email notification about payment status or legal filings. I'd glance at them, maybe forward them to my Kayla closure folder and move on with my day. It felt like I was putting her away piece by piece. Not out of vengeance, just to reclaim space in my head. Meanwhile, I was actually doing okay. Better than okay. The project lead role at work turned out to be one of the best things to happen to me. I got to oversee a renovation job for a local school, something that felt meaningful. I started getting home before dark. I wasn't constantly waiting on someone who always seemed half present. I even started dating again. Slowly, cautiously. I went on a few coffee dates. Met some nice women, but nothing serious yet. I was just trying to rediscover who I was when I wasn't trying to save somebody else. And then, out of nowhere, one crisp Sunday morning in October, I got a knock at the door. I almost didn't answer. I was in gym shorts and still deciding whether I wanted to cook breakfast or go for a run. But the knocking didn't stop, and it wasn't aggressive, just persistent. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap. I opened the door, and there she was, Kayla. She looked different, tired, smaller somehow. Not physically, but like her energy had deflated. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup. Hoodie, faded jeans. Eyes rimmed red, like she hadn't slept properly in days. Hey, she said softly, biting the corner of her lip. I didn't say anything, just leaned against the frame and waited. She looked down at her shoes, then back up. Can we talk? I crossed my arms. Talk or apologize? Her eyes flicked up at me like that surprised her. Both, maybe. I let her in. She stepped inside like it hurt, like my apartment was made of nails. I motioned toward the couch, but she just stood there, arms crossed tightly like she was cold. I know I screwed up, she said finally. I was stupid. I didn't think you'd actually enforce it. I raised an eyebrow. That's what you came to say? She flinched a little. No, I mean, I'm sorry for how I handled everything. I should have been honest with you. About him. About how I was feeling. But I didn't know how to leave without hurting you. I let that sit between us for a moment. Then I said, so you decided to hurt me afterward instead? That landed. She closed her eyes for a second, breathed in. I know, and I'm not proud of it. I was selfish. I took what you gave me, your time, your money, your faith, and I ran. I justified it to myself. Told myself we'd grown apart. That you were too steady, too safe. And I thought I wanted more. She looked at me, and her voice cracked a little. Turns out more isn't always better. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just sat with her words and waited. I'm not here to ask you to drop it, she continued. I know I signed that agreement. I know I owe you. I'm working. I'll keep paying. I just wanted you to hear it from me. I didn't plan to fall for someone else while you were helping me build my future. But I did. And now I see that he wasn't what I thought he'd be. What happened? I asked. She laughed a little, but it was hollow. He loved the fantasy, the idea of me being a nurse, the degree, the future plans. But when it got hard, when the debt hit, when the real-life stress kicked in, he checked out. Started blaming me for dragging him down. I nodded, not smug, just understanding. I guess karma doesn't have to scream, she said quietly. Sometimes it just whispers. We sat in silence for a long moment. Then she finally moved toward the door. That's all. I wanted you to know I'm not ignoring what I did. I deserve this. All of it. I stood up, walked her to the door, and opened it. She paused in the frame and turned back. You were always good to me, she said. Too good, maybe. I looked her in the eyes. No such thing. You just weren't ready for good. And then she left. I closed the door and leaned my head against it for a second, letting out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for over a year. That was the last time I saw her in person. After that day, the payments kept coming, slow, steady. I never reached out again. Never needed to. She'd said her piece, and I had mine. Silence, peace, and a life finally my own again. After that final visit from Kayla, things shifted. Not overnight, not dramatically, but inside me, something finally clicked into place. It wasn't closure exactly. I don't think closure ever really shows up the way people expect it to. It's not a door slamming shut. It's more like turning down the volume on a radio that's been buzzing in the background so long you forgot it was on. I started sleeping better, eating better, laughing more easily, even at dumb commercials or awkward silences. Life didn't feel like something I was recovering from anymore. It just was, and I was present for it again. Funny thing is, I never thought I'd be that guy. The one who comes out the other side of the messy breakup better than he went in. For a while, I honestly thought Kayla had drained the last of whatever kindness I had in me. But turns out, people don't actually break you. They just uncover where your weak spots are and give you a choice. You either reinforce those places or let them rot. I chose to rebuild, not out of spite, not to prove anything, just because I finally realized I deserved more than waiting around for someone to decide if I mattered. A few months after that last conversation, I was sitting at this tiny cafe near the project site I'd been managing. Cold morning, strong coffee, winter sun leaking through the window like it was trying to apologize for how sharp the wind was outside. This woman walked in, dark green coat, short curly hair, no makeup, wearing scrubs under her coat like she'd just finished a night shift. She looked exhausted, but in that kind of peaceful way people do when they know their exhaustion means something. She ordered tea, sat at the table next to mine, and pulled out a book I'd read last year. I smiled a little, not because I was trying to flirt, but just at the coincidence. She noticed. "You've read this one?" she asked, lifting a little. "Twice," I said. "The ending hits different the second time." She smiled. "That's what some at work told me. Guess I'll find out." Her name was Maya. She was a nurse. And no, before you ask, she had no connection to Kayla. Different hospital, different background, different everything. But what made me stop and pay attention was how grounded she felt. She didn't talk to fill silence. She wasn't performing anything. She just was. We didn't swap numbers that day. We just talked, for maybe 20 minutes, about work, burnout, sourdough bread, for some reason. Then we both left. But a week later, we saw each other again. Same cafe. This time, she sat at my table without asking. And yeah, that turned into something. Not some fairy tale rebound. Not a grand, sweeping romance to heal me. Just two people showing up as they were, tired, honest, curious. We took it slow. Real slow. Like, I still sleep on one side of the bed out of habit, kind of slow. Maya wasn't interested in being saved, and I wasn't looking to save anyone anymore. That's the part one didn't realize until I was in it, that you can give so much to someone and still come out of it with enough left over to build something new. That maybe love isn't about sacrifice the way we think it is. Maybe it's just showing up again and again without asking the other person to be anything they're not. I didn't tell Maya much about Kayla at first. She knew I'd been through something, and she didn't press. Eventually, I shared the broad strokes, enough to be honest, not enough to make it the centerpiece. One night, maybe 6 months in, she asked, "Do you regret it?" I didn't need to ask what she meant. "Not the way I used to," I said. Back then, I thought I lost something I could never get back. But now, I think I just learned what not to give away so easily. She nodded like she understood exactly. And here's the wildest part of all this. Kayla and I never spoke again. No dramatic reunion. No desperate calls. Just distance. Silence. I heard through the grapevine, mutuals we barely kept, that she eventually left the guy she'd dumped me for, that she moved back to her hometown, that she was paying down the loans, slowly but surely, working 2 or 3 jobs like she said. I didn't feel good or bad about it. Just neutral. It was her life. Her choices. Her consequences. People kept asking if I felt like I won. But honestly, it wasn't about winning. It was about finally realizing the scoreboard was fake to begin with. I'd spent years measuring love by how much I could give, but now I measure it by how seen I feel. How calm, how present. Maya gave me that, without trying, without asking. And I gave it back, not because I owed her anything, but because it felt right. About a year after Kayla showed up at my door, I got a letter. An actual letter. Not a bill, not junk mail, just a regular envelope, handwritten. My first thought was it was something from an old family member. But when I flipped it over and saw her name in the return address corner, I just stared at it for a second. I didn't feel panic or anger, just curiosity. I opened it. It wasn't long. A single page. No begging. No accusations. Just a letter that read like it had taken her a long time to figure out what she wanted to say and what she didn't. She started by saying she didn't expect a response, and that was fine. She wasn't asking for one. She wrote that she'd finally paid off the last of what she owed, that it had taken longer than she'd hoped, but she kept at it, that she transferred to a small-town clinic and was rebuilding quietly, without shortcuts this time. She said she knew she'd burned bridges, that she didn't want pity, but that she wanted me to know she'd grown up, even if it took hitting bottom to realize she needed to. Then, at the end, she wrote, "You were never a stepping stone. You were the first person who believed I could be more." I didn't know how to hold that without resenting it. "I'm sorry. I hope your life is peaceful. I hope you're still the kind of man who builds, not just homes, but people, even when they didn't deserve it." I folded the letter and put it in my drawer. I didn't write back, not because I hated her, but because there was nothing left to say. That part of my life had finished. She had finally arrived at her own reckoning, and I had long since stepped off that road. Around that same time, Maya and I were getting ready to move in together. It wasn't a grand romantic leap. No fireworks or dramatic speeches. It just made sense. Her lease was up. My place had enough space. We liked waking up together more than we liked texting good morning. One night, we were packing up some of her stuff, sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by boxes. She pulled out an old photo album and flipped through pictures from nursing school. A few classmates, her cap and gown, hospital rotations. Then she paused on one photo, a group shot. Kayla was in it. My stomach clenched for half a second. Maya noticed. "You know her?" she asked casually. "Yeah," I said. "Long time ago." She studied my face. "You okay?" "Yeah, just surprised. That's all." "She didn't make it through her program," Maya said, flipping the page. "Left just before the final semester. Heard she came back later, but no one really stayed in touch." I nodded. That told me more than the letter did. And again, I felt no need to say more. We moved in 2 weeks later. Got a second-hand couch. Adopted a cat Maya named Pineapple for some reason that still doesn't make sense. I started drawing again, something I hadn't done in years. Little sketches, floor plans, cartoons of Maya falling asleep with Pineapple on her chest. Peace is strange when you haven't known in a while. It doesn't show up loud. It sneaks in quietly when you're brushing your teeth and realize your chest isn't tight anymore. When you stop refreshing your inbox, hoping someone's changed. When you can sit in stillness and not want to crawl out of your skin. That's where I ended up. And it's why I'm telling this story. Not because I want revenge or sympathy or applause, but because someone reading this is probably sitting in the same place I once was, blindsided, gutted, wondering how the hell someone they love could take so much and walk away like it meant nothing. To you, I say this. You'll get through it. Not by getting even, but by getting real with yourself, your boundaries, your worth. Revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's a quiet life they can't touch anymore. And when that day comes, when they finally see what they lost and you're not waiting to be chosen anymore, you won't need the apology. You won't even want it. You'll just nod, maybe smile to yourself, and get back to living the life they helped you outgrow. And that, honestly, that's the best thank you you'll never have to send.